When you hear ERA, what do you think of? You're a baseball guy. What do you think of?
I think of equal rights.
You do?
I do, but that's only because I know this story.
Exactly. In fact, Stephen Adams knows this story so well because this is his story, all right? A little, before we go all down the rabbit hole here, a little pre-history. We started looking into this last year as an issue for the state of Florida, all because Stephen brought this to the table and said, this is something people are talking about. This is something that affects the state of Florida. Let's start looking into it. And so we did. And we went down a few rabbit holes on this. What we came up with was a piece that I think informed a lot of people, shed a lot of light on the issue, got us being made fun of on John Oliver on Last Week Tonight. But it also, I think, put this on a few people's radar that it wasn't there before. And so here we are again today talking about the Equal Rights Amendment, and we're going to give you all the info that you need, hopefully, to make your own informed opinion about the issue. Let's start with what it is, Stephen. I mean, for the very basics, if we want to bring it in here, the Equal Rights Amendment dictates equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. So basically what we're talking about here is equal rights protection under the Constitution, right? Which is part of the equal, what is it? The clause in the
equal protection
equal
clause
protection of the 14th Amendment. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I got too many notes.
And so a lot of people probably think, well, we've already got this in place. We have this equal protection clause in the 14th Amendment, which was the basis of landmark cases like Brown v. Board of Education, which led to the desegregation of schools out there, right?
Of course.
But the equal protection clause itself never once mentions sex. And so there are people out there, supporters of this Equal Rights Amendment, which say, we need that written down.
Absolutely, and we need it in the Constitution because laws can be overturned. Once you get something in the Constitution, it is a lot more bulletproof. Justice Antonin Scalia said as much. You know, he is quoted as having the opinion that there is no equal protection on the basis of sex in the Constitution, which can open a whole can of worms once you start seeing how it's actually applied in real life.
And so this Equal Rights Amendment made it through Congress in 1972.
It did.
And since then, it's been incumbent on the states to try and decide whether or not they want to ratify this amendment, right?
Right.
So they had about a 10-year window to get it done. It didn't get done. Not enough states have done it. But supporters of the amendment are so sure that they want this passed that they say, maybe they'll just kind of waive that rule a little bit. If we get up to 38 states, we get up to that majority there, they'll say, okay, and we'll just have this as the law of the land. So that's what they're currently trying to do. And one of the main reasons they want to do that is because of something called scrutiny. So under our law, when a case goes to court, they look at the case with a different level of scrutiny if it affects a different minority group. So under the law so far, there are protected classes, and those include people in different minority groups or people of different religions, and those cases are subject to that scrutiny. But again, sex is not a part of that.
Right.
So these people want the Equal Rights Amendment and say, listen, if this was an amendment to the Constitution, it would raise the level of scrutiny that a court has to then look at the case. So if you get a case that makes it all the way through, then they have to take a really close look and make the best judgment under the law.
Right, exactly. So in order to get something ratified into the Constitution, you need 2/3 of states. That's 38 states to ratify it. How many are we at?
3/4 of states.
3/4, excuse me, not 2/3.
2/3 of Congress.
I'm thinking 2/3. Yes.
You're good.
I've been doing too much reading of this. You need 38 states. We have 37 that have ratified it. Here are the ones in red, as you might guess, are the ones that have not yet. Oh, by the way, that includes us down here in Florida. So that's, again, why we've been talking about this here in the state of Florida, because it has now become a bit of a race between some of these states as to who can be the 38th state to ratify this amendment and then put it in Congress's hands. And you mentioned also the 10-year window that Congress set. That is also, it's a little funny because it's not actually in the amendment, it's in the preamble, which leaves it very much open to interpretation by Congress. They are going to have to make the decision once this gets ratified by a 38th state, whether or not they want to acknowledge that 10-year window or just say, hey, you know, let's get this done.
And you've been out there reporting on this story even more since our original story today. Do you get any sense of whether you think Florida could actually be that 38th?
It's a tough one. It's going to be difficult, but not impossible. So today is Thursday. What is it? The 5th?
Yes.
The 5th of September. Today there was a forum hosted by the Athena Society, which is a women's rights group that actually was formed to support the Equal Rights Amendment. They hosted a forum with St. Petersburg Mayor Rick Kreisman and Tampa Mayor Jane Castor, who both came in and sort of sat on a panel to discuss the Equal Rights Amendment and their support of it. No surprise that they both support it very much. But this needs to be ratified by the state legislature. The state legislature here in Florida currently is a majority Republican legislature, and this has generally been not an issue that Republicans have gotten behind for a variety of reasons. So you can go back and look at the old piece that we did in November, which we'll put in the comments here, and that'll give you a little background on it. But they're hopeful for a number of reasons. One is this issue, the equal rights issue, equal rights amendment issue, has really started gathering a lot more steam and momentum in the last few years, whether it be the Me Too movement, whether it be the women's marches, whether, there has definitely been a renewed effort to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified. And then the other reason they're hopeful was that there's a new administration in Tallahassee. And this Ron DeSantis administration, yes, he is a Republican, but he has shown a willingness to be open to certain issues that previous administrations have not been. And so they were hopeful for those reasons. They still have an uphill battle, like they said. The message that we heard today was they would get it started at the local level. Like today, the Hillsborough County passed a resolution in support of the Equal Rights Amendment, right? So you do it at the city level, you do it at the county level. That's the type of groundswell that eventually can make it to a state capitol and actually get it done at the state level. So that's why they're hopeful. But again, it's not going to be easy.
And people might be wondering, well, why do critics not want the Equal Rights Amendment? For supporters, it's so straightforward. Let's treat guys and girls equally. But for the people who are against it, their main reason they're worried about it is they say there are going to be unintended consequences. Think about it this way.
Yes.
If we were to treat all men and all women exactly the same, they fear that it could lead to stuff like federally mandated abortions, or we could have a prison system in which men and women were not separated. And for them, those are big red flags. Now, with any law, you're going to have unintended consequences. So even, for supporters, they recognize that that's, there will be things that come up. But for the supporters there, they say, hey, listen, as issues come up, things that we want to debate, we can tackle those on a case-by-case basis, just like we've done with any other law of the land.
Absolutely.
They say the benefits far outweigh any questions that might come up about how you deal with it. The abortion one, though, for the critics of the Equal Rights Amendment is the really big one for them. They worry about its effect on that. Yeah,
I think from the people that I've spoken to, they mentioned some of those other unintended consequences, but the abortion one is like the big one.
Yeah.
But I think, moving forward, I think it's fair to assume that we will see another attempt to get this in the upcoming 2020 session, which starts January 14th up in Tallahassee in 2020. And I spoke with a state representative who was also at this event earlier today. She is really hopeful to bring it to the table. And I asked her too, because like I said, they had this in the House and the Senate last session, and both never even made it to the floor. They died in committee. I said, what's going to be different this time around? What makes you think you can actually get this out of committee and get it to the floor for a vote? And she told me it's because of the groundswell of support that they've seen over the last year, over the last 2 years. Again, for the reasons that we mentioned, she feels like there's a renewed energy behind this push to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified, and they're hopeful that that's going to be enough to get the support of the Speaker of the House, to get the support of the governor and some of these other really key figures in this in order to push it over the edge. Anything else?
No, I guess the only thing I would say on top of your groundswell comment is there are kind of two ways you can do this.
Yes.
So you can do it the way they're trying to do right now, which is going to need 3/4 of the states. You could also go a constitutional convention route. So if you just called it audible and you got, it would be 2/3 of the states have to call for a constitutional amendment, and then you'd still need those 3/4 to go for it. You could really theoretically do a grassroots movement to try and spearhead this through and kind of force other states' hands. But I doubt that that's how this particular issue will go, but only time will tell.
Going to be a very interesting conversation that we will see nationwide here, especially in some of those red states. And we'll show you again, particularly North Carolina, Virginia, Florida, Arizona. These are some of the ones that supporters have been specifically targeting. This guy knows his stuff, doesn't he? Where would I be without this guy? Stephen Adams, everybody, thank you so much for your help on this. This was his idea from the start, and of course we're going to follow the issue and keep you posted. Thanks for watching 10 News YouTube.